Welcome to the library studio here as part of the YAHOWAH blog. I'm your host, Craig Winn. This has been an amazing journey that we have progressed upon through the prophetic testimony of YAHOWAH through one of the most extraordinary men who ever lived, YAHOWAH. He is known as Isaiah. We have verification of this prophecy that goes back now 2,300 years to the 3rd and early 4th century BCE because of the great Isaiah scroll and the other texts of this prophet found in the caves above Qumran. In it, when we turn to the 56th and 57th chapter, we find testimony that is unlike any other. It is profoundly important for our day. I originally turned to this section of YAHOWAH because I knew that after we reconsidered what God had to say through YAHOWAH in the 17th chapter of Isaiah regarding the timing of the Shabuah and Teruah harvests, as well as the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah on Teruah, and how this was going to play out as the world was devolving into chaos, and as we enter the time of Israel's troubles, particularly as the United States forces a Islamic state on Israel. We went here to confirm that all of this was going to happen in a way that we had been interpreting the words, which is that the two harvests will actually cause people to disappear, their souls to be removed, their bodies to vanish, such that the world doesn't know where they have gone, but yet YAHOWAH has welcomed them into his company. And it is in the opening two lines of YAHOWAH 57 that we find this to be true. But leading up to it, we find God telling us of a remarkable individual for the last days that he would use to herald this message to his people. He is called Tzedakah, which means he's right. He is announced as the Nakar, which means he's an observant foreigner. And he presents God's testimony as never before. But as we move forward, and as he is part of this Shabuah Katsir, or harvest, which is the next fulfillment of a Moedim in YAHOWAH's schedule, we find that he is opposed. There is, by God's own parlance, a demonic woman, a despicable whore, using his terms, who opposes him. And God will make 10 verses, which comprise some 20 statements, specifically about her and her ilk. Devastating. It overwhelmingly the most aggressive and specific attack from God on any person or group of individuals throughout the entirety of the prophets. And it's specific to this woman at this time, and those who have allied with her to denounce the message of YAHOWAH and of YAHOWAH himself, even changing God's name in the process. And my first concern as we found this is that why would God give this much prophetic ink to such a insignificant imbecile? That's what they are. They're insignificant. A group of 8 to 12 people, meaningless, dunderheads at best. And each time they make a claim, were able to demonstrate their wrong instantly without effort. The very passages they picked to make their point destroy them. It's kind of like Paul in his letters 2,000 years ago. And so we are, Rich, we have a Wookiee that would really like to get in if you wouldn't mind. Wookiee went out for a stroll, but he likes to be part of these podcasts, so we'll accommodate him. And so my question has been, since I have been doing this, why would God be so vitriolic towards this otherwise insignificant cast of characters? And we're going to get to that answer because this is not a common rebuke. God names names, and he condemns this cast to hell. Now, before we re-engage, and we're going to go through a review in our process of re-engaging, so you'll all be caught up. I do want to mention what has happened these last few days, because clearly Donald Trump is proving with every word and deed that I have correctly interpreted the prophets and recognized that he is demon possessed and that he is the corporeal manifestation of Satan. He is the one the prophets spoke. He's the one that Christians know as the Antichrist. He's had quite a week, continuing to steal as a pirate oil tankers. The last one off the coast of Iceland that was crewed and belonged to Russia. The one prior to that belonged to China. He invaded a country. He abducted its leader. And he abducted him on the charge that he was the head of a narcotics cartel, only to rescind those charges during the indictment phase before the judge. You know why they rescinded those charges? Not only can't they prove them because they're not true. Maduro was not the head of a drug cartel. But you know who was the head of that drug cartel? Who founded it and was running it? The American CIA. And so disclosing information pursuant to that would be rather embarrassing for the Trump administration, for the nation. So they dropped those charges, which means they had no grounds to abduct him. And of course, now Trump is belligerent and says, we took over the country. So what? We're going to take its oil. So what? We're going to run it. So what? What's next? Greenland? Cuba? Panama? Or Iran? Or all of the above? What's next? And how many MAGAs are out there going to be cheering him on as he begins World War III? I mean, when you're playing chicken with the Chinese, you're putting your nation in a position where it's economic suicide. If they don't respond aggressively, they will continue to work behind the scenes and have total compliance on undermining the dollar with their alternative. And if they do respond, they will crater your economy instantaneously. Is it going to be an instant death or slow death for America vis-a-vis the Chinese? And with the Russians, it's the certainty of a nuclear exchange. Trump seems convinced that he can continue to push Putin's buttons and that Putin won't respond, cowering. And if he does, he'll just continue to take more and more. But will Putin respond? If he doesn't, then Trump will continue to be belligerent And his next target after Cuba and Greenland will be Iran. If he takes Iran, after taking Venezuela, he assures that China and Russia will have no choice but to strike back. China economically, Russia militarily. It's exactly as the prophets foretold. Trump is the instigator. The world is on the cusp of annihilation. And then, of course, we have what happened in Minnesota. Miss Good, murdered by an ICE agent. I've seen the film and the camera angles from every which way. It was murder. Elon Musk on X had 2 posts last night showing that he has lost any vestige of a conscience, blaming the murder on the woman. Trump posted a similar response, blaming the woman's death on her, lying about the ICE agent. ICE has become the new Gestapo. Their racial hatred is directed towards Hispanics rather than Jews, but they are the Gestapo. Trump's troops and National Guard in American cities are Trump's version of the SS. Stephen Miller is his Goebbels. He is establishing the Fourth Reich. Watching that belligerence, murder of Miss Good was troublesome. But then hearing the MAGAs denounce her and try to venerate the murderers, it's tragic. 2 of them, even after her murder, were high-fiving each other, congratulating one another for the horror they perpetrated. One ICE agent is even depicted telling a physician who wants to take her pulse and see if he can resuscitate her, can treat her, that no, he can't have access to her. And they just let her continue to bleed to death. It is a travesty. And I'm reminded during all of this that there is one nation that doesn't not yet know that Trump is demonic, that he is the great deceiver, the great betrayer, that he is the ultimate egomaniac and warmonger, a horrible sexual pervert, that he is exactly as the prophets had foretold. And that one nation is the nation that should know most of all, because the prophecies were written in their language, delivered by their people, and that's Israel. They're presenting Donald Trump as the second coming of Cyrus. They venerate him in Israel, and yet he is the very one who will betray them. He's still on record saying, don't worry about the West Bank. Israel's never going to take the West Bank. Why? Because he's going to use Judea and Samaria to create a Islamic state that he can give to MBS of Saudi Arabia as a way of prolonging the petrodollar another year or 2. Quid pro quo, the trade, the very heart of Israel, to prolong the petrodollar, which is, by the way, the reason that the U.S. perpetrated its invasion of Venezuela. And by the way, I would like you to know that the celebratory Venezuelans that you've seen on social media, they were celebrating soccer matches 3 and 4 years ago. Such is not the case. The U.S. is despised in Venezuela. All right, so that you know the timing that we're operating under and how rapidly the world is devolving, how accurate the prophets have been, I would like to review the words of Yahweh as he revealed them in Yeshaya 56, as we then begin into the 57th chapter before we press on. So I want us to remain grounded. I want you to know the context, because it's the context here that makes the choice of victims of this accusation by Yahweh the most intense, condemning, rebuke to be found anywhere in Yahweh's testimony, specific to one group of malcontents and naysayers. So it's essential that you know exactly what God has to say about them, because there are those in our midst that are her little spies, watching everything we do, passing it on so they can attack it, as they continue to draw an audience by hashtagging my name and the YAHOWAH series, even Yahweh's name, even though they have corrupted it. So God's rebuke is focused, it's personal, and it's important that we remain cognizant of the crime which led to Yahweh's evisceration of a woman's character and the man who enabled her rise. For this is what Yahweh says: you should choose to be observant, carefully considering and closely examining the means to exercise good judgment and to resolve disputes, making good decisions. Then choose to engage so that you act upon that which is correct and vindicating, because my deliverance and resulting salvation are approaching. They are close, they're imminent and personal. Therefore, the tzedakah, the one who is correct about me and vindicates with me, will come. He will pursue the harvest, be included, and then return and remain, so as to be revealed and made known. Blessed by the benefits of the relationship, joyous and productive by showing the proper way, is this person, this mortal man, who acts upon and engages in this with unfolding implications over time. Because this son of Adam, this lone man, he will be exceptionally firm, resolute in this, empowered and strengthened so that he prevails, restoring through his conviction and resolve with regard to this. By closely examining and carefully considering the Shabbat as the promise of 7, thereby avoiding defiling and profaning it or making it common, he is observant, he's careful, he is attentive, and he is especially aware. So his hands and that which he influences are kept from acting upon or engaging in anything unjust, immoral, irrational, troubling, or distressing. Do not say regarding Hanakar, the observant foreigner, the one who knows and understands through thoughtful examination, then acknowledges by having been discerning and respectful, who has formed an inseparable relationship and joined with Yahowah, something which would infer Yahweh will surely abandon me, preventing me from being included as part of his family. That's what they would want you to believe. It isn't so. And let not the Charis, this esteemed and authorized official designee, say, what then? If I become a withered and unproductive Etz tree, an incapacitated counselor or paralyzed messenger. Isaiah 56:3. I want to share something with you now that I did not share previously. I have received upwards of 10,000 death threats from Muslims since initially writing Tea with Terrorists, then Prophet of Doom, now Goddamn Religion, and having done 10,000 radio shows in my name, proclaiming what I had learned, denouncing Allah, Islam, Muhammad, and the Quran. I never flinched. I have written many, many years ago, I think somewhat around 15 years ago, a book called Questioning Paul. Initially with the Great Galatians Debate, then Questioning Paul. Now it's called Twistianity. It's also 5 volumes in length. Repudiating Christianity, proving that Jesus never existed, demonstrating that Paul lied and that he was demon-possessed. And for it, I am assailed and demeaned every day across the internet. Hasn't bothered me at all. You've never heard me complain once about either of these things. It was different for me when people that I had cared about, supported, taught, led, worked with, turned. And not only left, but were vitriolic in the process. Doing more to demean and disparage my name and reputation than anyone who had ever been a Muslim or Christian or conspiratorialist that I had exposed and condemned previously. They have also had a field day with me. It didn't bother me. But these were people I cared about. These were people I tried to help. These were people I trusted. And they proved grossly untrustworthy. They demonstrated that they had an immense amount of envy and that they were unworthy of this calling. But to have a group of insiders become so vicious, that hurt. One of these women was one of my wife's closest friends. She was my publisher. Well, she was a media manager for me, somebody I took under my wing, did more kindness for, did more in support of her than anyone in her life by her own admission. Another woman was my publisher, who I thought was rock solid. And then one of her best friends. The rest, particularly the men involved, with one exception, is one guy that I thought was pretty solid, a webmaster. But he turned out to be the most disgusting of all, most lost of all, the biggest enabler of all. And when they initially did this, it was hurtful. You know, it's one thing for somebody that you don't know who has read something that you have written and doesn't understand it to say, I won't kill you. Yeah, I've had thousands of those. It's another thing entirely. When people you were close to, that you talked to on a daily basis, turn nasty. And the very books and person that they had worked tirelessly to support, based upon one psychotic woman's mental breakdown, decided that they would have giggles by hashtagging my name and the books that I had spent 24 years writing to draw an audience in, to disparage the translations and presentations of thousands of unheralded insights regarding Yahweh, the reintroduction of his name, the realization that his beloved son served as our Savior, and to disparage me personally, writing all manner of hateful things and doing the same to my wife. That's a lot more painful. And it's debilitating. I recall at the when we saw them come up with their site that is specifically devoted to drawing an audience by hashtagging my name and yada yada. That there was one moment where I went to Yahweh and said, I didn't bargain for this. This pushes the threshold. It's personal. You promised to protect my family, and this is vicious. I don't deserve this. What are you going to do about it? Yeah, I was frustrated. It's closest to a Moshe moment I have ever had and may ever have. And I'm telling you now, bringing you into my confidence in this. I was frustrated. Because when you get down to it, ultimately, two things are true. One is that the medium that I must use to prevail in this mission is integrity and confidence. Your immediate recognition that I not only know what I'm talking about, but that I'm transparent. You can trust what I'm saying. And of course, they were trying to steal that. But the second part is that this is a job that cannot be done alone. I'm sitting here in front of the camera with all of the lights on and looking you in the eye, but it's Rich over here that is running the show. We can't do it without him. It's Leah that creates all the branding. It's the likes of Stephen and Kevin and others that manage, Anne, who manage all of the social media accounts where this information is distributed. I have a beloved fact checker and editors. My best friend over the years, who is our webmaster, reestablishing our site and our publishing situation with Amazon. I cannot do this alone, even with the infusion of Yahweh's seven spirits. It requires help. And there's something about having people that you had trusted for a decade, that you were close to, turn evil. So evil that Yahweh says, I'm sending them to Sheol. That they're demonic. That causes one to say, how do I know I can trust anybody? If the people who were pretended to be this devoted can go this bad, that fast, and can be so easily fooled by a psychopath, even when everything she says is so easily proven to be untrue. God, who's next? So it was a very vulnerable kind of a position, because you're wondering, are there others out there that are just pretending? Who can you actually trust? Then I realized that's Yahweh's point. It's the key to the issue. It's why all this exists. It's why he took us back to the garden. It's why I came to understand that the whole issue with Adam and the reason that it was Yahweh who caused the fall of man is because he couldn't trust Adam. And it's the reason why God's allowing us back into the garden and cultivating 8 people that are going to oversee the education of this mortal remnant of Yisrael that are going to be allowed back into the garden on Sukkah in 2033, purged of the religious guilt, so we get a fresh start on Teruah under Dod's ultimate guidance as he returns on Kippurim. The reason that we're being allowed back into the garden is to get it right, to demonstrate to Yahweh that it is possible for a person to be trusted, to earn God's trust. That group didn't. Sure. Most of the blame lies at the feet of the psychopath that God calls a sorceress and a whore. But those who followed her, support her, ought to have known better, and they didn't. They gobbled down her toxic fruit and continued to eat it and spew it. Proved untrustworthy. And so this is God's moment where he's saying, I'm serious about this. I don't want anyone to come back into that garden or to spend a moment with me in Shamayim, in heaven, who can't be trusted. Simple. I knew them better than you did, is what God said. I knew they couldn't be trusted. I gave them the opportunity to hang themselves, and they did. And now with this revelation, I'm explaining it all to you so that you know I'm really serious about this. God's not looking for a multitude of people. He's looking for quality individuals who are willing to listen, who are observant, who will engage based upon what they have seen and heard, and can be trusted. He's not looking for perfect people. They'd be boring. He's looking for people, if they make a mistake, they'll correct it and move on. He's looking for people, if they fall, will get up and get going. Those are the kind of individuals Yahweh was looking for. These people did not pass that test. God is saying, I want nothing to do with them. Even if you are this sweet old lady that appeared to be so supportive, but you were sucked in by a lie this thin, this obviously untrue, I'm sorry. You didn't pass the test. And this time, because God is so upset by the idea that somebody who is given access to the truth, right there, as God is working through somebody in a powerful way, and then they would not only renege on it, but would challenge them, saying, oh, but we too speak for God, and then would demean his wife, and then would try to speak over him while demeaning his name. God has told us what he did in that case, because that is Miriam, Moshe's sister. God said, it's like your father spit in your face. You are stricken now with leprosy. You are estranged from this community. And ultimately, God used her as the example of divorce and the single worst episode, an episode that was finally resolved by Yahweh saying, I want you to speak to the crag, and it will give forth its cleansing and nurturing waters. It was there where Miriam was buried that the waters of Meribah became the most obnoxious incident during the entirety of the Exodus. So God is being quite clear. This was a travesty because, well, with Miriam, she led the women's chorus during the Song of the Sea. She was an insider. She knew Yahweh. She had the benefit of listening to Moshe as he delivered the Torah. She could have made a contribution, and one time she did. But then she turned. And when she turned, having been an insider, having been somebody who knew better, God was forceful. The entire 12th chapter of Numbers is devoted in its entirety to denouncing and rebuking her for what she did. And this now is why we read the 57th chapter of Isaiah. It is the same. A Miriam by a different name. And so that is the answer, should you wonder why God would go out of his way to devote so much testimony, not only to lift up and protect the man he has chosen to deliver this message at this time, but to denounce those who would attack him. So let not the Sharish, the esteemed and authorized official designee, say, what then? If I become a withered and unproductive tree, an incapacitated counselor and paralyzed messenger? What if I allow that brief Moshe moment where I am frustrated at God allowing this group of malcreants to rise up and be so irritating? I said, God, I don't need this. Why are we doing this? Why are you even tolerating this? I am, according to Yahweh, the Etz Diath in Gan Eden. I am, according to Yahweh, Parah, productive. I am, according to Yahweh, the Choder, which is a branch, who has Sherish, roots, who is an observant stem, who is Parah, productive, who in the 11th chapter, we also learn in Isaiah that he is given the spirit of Etzah, this very tree, providing counsel on the complete picture of Diath, of knowledge. And so that's what Yahweh is referring to here. This tree providing the fruit of his people's redemption can't be incapacitated, can't be paralyzed, it can't be withered. It must produce its fruit, or all is lost. This is God's last best effort to save his people. And God is saying to the man that he has assigned this responsibility, you, sir, cannot say, think, or even ponder the possibility of being made unproductive. I won't allow it. It is also why Chazak is used three times in this testimony. God says, be tough as nails. Be firm. Be resolute. Don't let them get to you. Now, I had figured that out a month or so ago, maybe 2 or 3, 4 months ago. Even as their attacks became more and more unhinged and personal. But I did not expect this from Yahweh. So here we return. Then God says, to the contrary, this is what Yahweh says on behalf of the Sharish, the esteemed and authorized official designee, his Nakar, the one who is Sadaka, who have been, and he's speaking here plural, so he's talking about the team that he has assigned to him, have been subject to castration. What is the purpose of castration? Castration is part of the meaning of Sharish. First of all, what animal is castrated?
A bull.
A bull. That's the role that Yahweh has asked me to play. Why is the bull castrated? To make him unproductive. And let not to the contrary, this is what Yahweh says on behalf of the Sharish, esteemed and authorized official designees who have been subject to castration as a result of the positions they have taken as leaders. They provide guidance regarding the benefits of the relationship by being consistently observant and actually attentive while exploring and investigating my 7 Shabbat promises, which you need to know if you're going to participate in what God has going forward. The single most important day in human history was when Dod fulfilled matzah, removing our guilt. It occurred on a Shabbat. The next most important day will be the Teruah harvest, the Shabuah harvest, which is the harvest of 7 Shabbat. That's what Shabuah means. And so we have to be observant and actually attentive, exploring everything that can be known about Shabuah, about the harvest of 7 sevens. It, of course, will occur on a Shabbat. The final gleaning on Teruah and the work of the Adamah Parah when the bull becomes productive transpires on the 23rd and 24th of September in 2033, and that happens to be a Shabbat. The mortal remnant of Israel is allowed back into the garden on Shabuah, October 7th in 2033. It is also a Shabbat. Are you getting the message? So, they have chosen, preferring at this time, my will and my appreciation by revealing the correct path to the benefits of the relationship. If you're part of Team Yah, then God wants you to know that from his perspective, you've chosen to be here. You've chosen to benefit from pleasing him and for being in the center of his will. And you are doing so by revealing the correct path to the benefits of the relationship that are delivered on those Shabbats: Matzah, Shabuah, Teruah, and Sukkah. Therefore, they are positioned to be Shazak. It is what we must be to deal with the attacks. God has never been popular. Everyone who has ever spoken for God has been condemned. The vitriol against Yahweh's voice, his message, is shrill. It's vicious. And the only way you can endure it is to be Shazak. Shazak. I see it emblazoned on the screen. It means overpowering, intense, uncompromising, firm, unrelenting, effective. Shazak. And what are we to be uncompromising and firm resilient, even fiercely protective of my covenant, my family. Defend my family. And to defend my family, you must not allow anyone who does not belong in my home. And those who do belong in my home, you should follow my example and defend them with your last breath. God is defending his Nakar. He is defending his beloved son, who is the exemplar of this covenant, to Dode. He is defending his family against the naysayers who covet it for themselves, who claim to be covenant but are not, who claim the Shabuah harvest but will be left behind, who claim heaven and have earned a ticket to hell. That's God's response. That's how he becomes fiercely protective of his covenant. Do you have what it takes to be fiercely protective of Yahweh's covenant family? You know, Shazak is not a timid word. There is no modesty in this concept. It is the antithesis of meek. It's tough as nails, totally uncompromising, standing up, back bowed, chin out, fists up. Shazak is tough, fierce, totally and completely uncompromising, rigid, forceful, intense, bold, courageous. Shazak regarding Yahweh's covenant family. Then I will offer, freely giving at that time, to those in my home and as part of my family, and within my protected enclosure, a hand, an outstretched one, welcoming, supportive, and empowering, and a name. Even better, more beneficial and valuable than other sons and daughters. The group that prevails to the end, that remains steadfast, committed, courageous, bold, empowered, enabled. That group will not only enter the protective enclosure of our return to Eden on Sukkah as the enablers of the mortal remnant of Yisrael, so that they come to understand what they must do to earn Yahweh's trust. That God is going to empower every one of you. He is welcoming you into his home. You are the most important enablers of his desire. You will receive a name from Yahweh, more beneficial and valuable than any other. As my friend Kevin said the other day, he liked the name Sharish, official, designee, someone they tried to make unproductive. It's a good name indeed. I rather like the one that Yahweh first gave me a long time ago, Yada. Each of us can have our own, or we can just allow Yahweh to give one to us. And I will give to him an everlasting and eternal, personal and proper name, a designation and reputation which, for having shared the benefits of the relationship, will never be removed or taken away. To the team, a marvelous name. God's support. Entry into Eden on Sukkah. Yahweh's endorsement. And to the one leading the family at this time, protecting the family, his Nakar, also an everlasting and eternal name, which is associated with having shared the benefits of the relationship, Asher, which will never be removed or taken away. Asher, by the way, happens to be a very fine name. It's one of the names of the 12 tribes of Yisrael, and it is a name that means to welcome, to meet, to be invited, to summon, to read, and to recite. It's a very good name. The children of the Nakar, that's another good name. Although, while he will remain observant, he is only a foreigner for a short while. So the children of Hanakar, so he's speaking of this team that is invited into the protective enclosure of Eden during Sukkah, who are the Sharish, the designated and official agents of God's purpose, who formed a personal relationship with God, who seek his will and to please him. No matter how old you may be or young, he is saying that you're my kids. This is said in a number of places, and don't worry, I may not be the world's greatest dad, but that's not the point here. The point is that my first order of business, since Yahweh has called you my children, is that I'm going to give them to Dode and say, they're yours. I will remain at your side, and I will serve you and them in every way you ask. But these are yours. The children of Hanakar, the observant and discerning foreigner, have formed a relationship with, and they adhere closely to, Yahweh, not YAHOWAH, not the Mother God, to Yahweh. And they serve, attend to, and assist him, not her. They're loving, and they're adoring, and they appreciate everything that is associated with Yahweh's name. They aren't going to change it to create a girly god, a hermaphrodite. Continually and demonstrably existing as his co-workers. And here, I don't care if you want to make his capital H or lowercase h, and you are serving Yahweh or you're working with me, because the result is identical. And I think Yahweh sees it that way. Always observing and noticeably examining while considering the Shabbat promise of 7. Let's never lose track of Shabuah, shall we? Or the Shabuah celebration of Sukkah. Or that every important date save one between now and our return to the garden will be on a Shabbat. Shabuah, Teruah, and Sukkah, with the only one in between being Kippurim, because we will have already done all of the work necessary on the previous Shabbat. Always observing and noticeably examining while considering the Shabbat, the promise of 7, making it special by avoiding disrespecting it, like stealing it and claiming that the Shabuah harvest is your own. It's Yahweh's. We're guides to it and participants in it. And God says that those of you who are collaborating in this way, you are now, for the third time, God's going to say this word, which is the antithesis of what the Mother Goddess cult insists. They want to promote meekness and modesty and timidity. And God says, no. The characteristic that defines those who are in association with him, who defend his covenant family, who defend his name, who work with him right to the end in support of YAHOWAH. They are all Shazak, uncompromising and strengthened, devoted and unrelenting. They're established, they're firm, they're resolute and unrelenting. Yes, indeed. In what? Once again, in my covenant. God's not looking to remake the world. That's his job. He doesn't need us to incinerate all of the religious and the conspiratorial and the political and the militant. That's his job. He does not need us to restore the earth to the conditions of Eden. He'll take care of that quite nicely himself. He doesn't need us to facilitate the mechanism of removing our souls on YAHOWAH. He does not need us to transform the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah into a purging mechanism for his wayward family on Teruah. He does not need us to conceive or to operate any of those 4 chariots that are going to pick up the population from the world that is either being headed and taken directly to Sheol, taken to the area around the Temple Mount to benefit from the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah as Yehudim or as Goyim. He does not need our help in doing those things. He's got them under control. He does not need our help in releasing waters from underneath the Temple Mount or igniting the flames or causing that benefit. He is not asking us to turn the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant into something as brilliant as the sun. He is not looking for us to take responsibility for assuring that Dode returns as Elion. Our responsibility is to be observant, to pay attention to what God said, to be trustworthy regarding what he has conveyed to us, and for us to be exceedingly protective of his covenant family. That's what he needs from us. I will bring them at this time to my set-apart mountain. Yes, he will. We're talking about Teruah now, aren't we? I will cause them to rejoice such that they are elated in my family and in my home, to be distinct, separated, and set apart of those engaged in intervention and intercession who are judgmental and decisive, such that they can assist with the people's evaluation. Their uplifting and elevating offering and their sacrifice, which is slaughtered for them, will be acceptable and approved, especially satisfying on my sacrificial altar. There's only one of us who is sacrificing his Bashar body. It'll be myself, as the Adamah Parah. But every one of you who works with me in this regard, who is going to be there at this time, well, you're offering something that is exceedingly valuable. Your devotion to Yahweh, to his beloved Son, to the restoration of his people. God wants you to know that he is accepting and approves and is highly satisfied with what you're offering. I did learn something yesterday when translating Yeshaya 57:15 that was transformational in understanding what Dode endured on Pesach and Matzah, and what I will endure on Teruah as my body is sacrificed. The last kill of Donald Trump. A wonderful, lovely woman was a mother, was taken yesterday. It wasn't his first, and it won't be his last, but I will be. And the lesson that I learned is one that I had begun to appreciate some time ago. And that is that Yahweh's Ruach never left Dode, according to God's word. Which means the Ruach was with Dode's Nefesh, soul, as he was bludgeoned on Pesach and then crucified. And the Ruach of Yahweh was with Dode as he was dispatched to Sheol. That means that the Ruach of Yahweh isn't Yahweh, isn't God, but is something that God can use and dispatch in our world to protect, to enlighten, to enable those through whom he wishes to accomplish something important. But what this means is that Dode's Nefesh was shielded from the abuse, the terror, the torment, torture of fulfilling Pesach as the lamb, and protected from the great pressure on the hellish separation on matzah. It was the Spirit that took the blows. I don't think Dode knew that was going to occur before he endured it. He may have. But the very fact he trusted Yahweh, knowing what was going to happen with both, is extraordinary. And what we had was a spectacle for the whole world to see, a heroic act for the whole world to appreciate. Well, God, as a loving father, did not allow his beloved son to suffer. In the 15th verse of the 57th chapter of Yeshayah, it says the same thing, this time of the Adam of Parah. So, particularly for my wife, who has been troubled at the idea that Hasatan will be bludgeoning me, it's just my body. Understand that God will insulate my nefesh soul, such that, according to him, it's the Ruach that absorbs the blows. This is because my home and family, God says, will be invited and summoned, read and recited, and called out and proclaimed. A home and family of reasoned requests and of sound judgment for those who are set apart, distinct, and uncommon, and of intervention and intercession, even of assessment and evaluation. Tefillah. It is a word that we analyzed from, if it's philah or philel, as the basis of it, whether it means intercession and intervention, palal, or palah, if it speaks of being set apart, distinct, uncommon unto Yahweh. Either way is fine. I think that the primary definition, which is based on the Pei, Lamed, Hey letters, with them, all of them matching, is that it would read like this. This is because my home and family will be invited and summoned, read and recited, called out and proclaimed, a home and family that is set apart, uncommon, and unique. For the entire family and for all people. This is important to me for a number of reasons. Well, Yahweh chose Yisrael. Yisrael did not choose Yahweh. The reason that God chose to convey this message through a nakar, an observant foreigner, is there were no Yehudim willing to listen, respond. And by saying it this way and concluding God's story as he began it, says everybody in the beginning of God's story is a goyim. Adam, Chawah, Noah, his family, all goyim. Abraham, Sarah, goy. Yishak, Jacob, they're goy too. Everybody initially is a goy. And that's how God's finishing the story, with his recalcitrant and embittered people in between. And ultimately, there will be two spiritual chariots that bring people back to Jerusalem. And while they have different roles, at least initially, one is the workers, the other, well, they're both work. It's just different kinds of work. If you're not working, you're not going to remain in Eden. It's a prerequisite. But of Israelites and of Goyim. And there's so many people who are Goyim who accepted Yahweh's invitation to be part of his family and have remained part of his family along with the Israelites and Yehudim. And so as we know, and we hear the Yahweh's plans to have two groups of people brought into Jerusalem, and that a group is brought in based upon their attitudes and aptitudes who are Goyim, who are not overtly religious or political, and they will benefit from the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, although they will enter the millennial Shabbat as workers. That's not a sentence. That's not a condemnation. That is an opportunity. And the covenant will be available to all people. All of them will have that opportunity over the 1,000 years to earn that right. Yahweh, my upright one and foundation, who gathers and assembles yet again the scattered of Yisrael, those who engage and endure with God. This is what God is doing on Teruah. He is gathering his scattered, just as he said, from the four corners of the earth in these four chariots. Although one stays in Jerusalem and just gathers those around the Temple Mount with Eliah and with Yada, and one escorts the religious Jews dressed in black in a black chariot to Sheol, a black hole. Consistent theme there, don't you think? And the white one brings them to be purged, and this non-overtly religious and political Jews to be purged by the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, and the dappled chariot is for the Goyim. So God's going to gather and assemble yet again the scattered of Yisrael, those who engage and endure with God. And he's announcing this in advance of its occurring. And he says, I will obtain, bring together, and assemble before him, masculine singular, those collected and obtained by him, masculine singular. Now you might say, why would God give a man credit for what is obviously a miraculous act? It is, but God bringing his people from around the world on Teruah into Jerusalem to position them around the Temple Mount to benefit from the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah is all God's doing. I mean, the Adam of Parah's role, the Nakar's role at this moment is to die, sacrificing his body. Any idiot can die, right? So why would you give the idiot who's dying? I'm using that term facetiously because God doesn't think I'm an idiot. And it's only my body that succumbs, not my soul. And spirit is protecting my nephesh during the process. But why would he give credit to the guy playing the part of the bull? Because it's his nature. And because it didn't happen by accident. God made a decision 3,450 years ago that he was going to pick people through whom he would speak. And so those who are gathered will be collected and obtained by the words he has shared. By that time, he will have had 32 years invested, with another 8 years of hard work to go at the beginning of the return to Eden during Sukkah for 40, so it will match Moshe and Dode before him. But it's his words which has resonated finally and collected and obtained these people. They wouldn't be there without those words. And so God is sharing credit. It's his nature. If he chooses someone and enables them and then wishes to share credit for what he is achieving through him, then that is his prerogative. And it's not just that is God's right to do so, it's his nature to do so. It tells you an enormous amount about him, doesn't it? That he will share credit with a lowly man, an Enosh, a mere mortal. It says, every beast and animal of the country and open environs you will choose to come to devour and destroy, every living being in the thicket and the foliage of the tree. Yeah, it's going to get rough out there. This is Isaiah 56:9. Those in the foliage of the tree, you are members of the covenant family who have earned that right by having devoured the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Books like these. And there will be animals of all types, mostly religious, but also political, conspiratorial, anti-Semites, who will have come, well, largely for the last jihad. But, today, MAGAs are as vicious as Marxists, and they are almost as vicious as Muslims. The world will turn not only against Israel, but against those representing YAHOWAH. So every beast and every animal, the open environs will come. They're going to try to devour and destroy everything in the thicket of the foliage of the tree. 56:9. Those who are watchmen, who are assigned to be lookouts, well, they're going to be blind to all of this. All of them are ignorant and opposed to YAHOWAH. God plays favorites. You don't score points with God by opposing those he has chosen. They're all doing so without understanding, without revelation. They're completely unaware. They're unable to teach and are therefore clueless. They are universally contemptible, rife with emotion, akin to dumb dogs, incapable of intelligent speech. They are without the capacity to understand or the ability to prevail, and they will not succeed as they are utterly incompetent, unable even to bark, panting while dreaming and thus hallucinating, lying around smitten with their inactivity and lack of awareness. God is openly condemning all of those who have sought to oppose YAHOWAH as Ha-Nakar, and those who are his children, who are part of this covenant family, and who are now there protecting this mortal remnant of Yisrael. And God is not impressed with them. And he is on record saying, bark as you will, try to bite as you will, try to devour those in the tree of knowledge. If that's your last hurrah, it will be for naught. You are dumb as stones. And so those overly emotional whores and malcontents have an intensely fierce soul. They're stubborn. They're self-willed. They will never acknowledge that they have gone too far, never admitting that they are gluttonous and unrestrained, as they are insatiable, never being satisfied. And that's the answer to this mother goddess clique, is that they will press on. And why will they press on? Because God needs the filter. He needs one final sieve of those who have sniffed the fruit, now who have to be denied because they are not trustworthy. And so, right to the very end, there is to be this final filter. So it goes beyond the filter of religion being excluded, the filter of overt politics causing estrangement, the filter of conspiratorial anti-Semitism that is so rife in today's world that precludes access. There will be this final filter, and that Yahweh is going to excoriate them in a moment. No one who is untrustworthy is going to be allowed into Yah's presence. Those acting as shepherds, clamoring for authorization, to lead and to feed the flock, they're not Yada, because they are ignorant and irrational, devoid of understanding, neither perceiving nor comprehending, and thus lacking the capacity to make intelligent connections. All of them, they've turned to their own way. Every person after their own ill-gotten gain and dishonest advantage, acting like thieves, without exemption or restraint, and at the very end, to their demise. What is the very basis of Judaism and Christianity? Of men acting like thieves, stealing God's beloved dotes, his titles and his achievements. Dishonestly acting like thieves by coveting and claiming God's authorization for themselves while denouncing his testimony, even changing his name. They're the ones acting like shepherds. They're the ones pretending to be authorized to lead the flock. But God's saying they're not Yada. They're ignorant, they're irrational. They lack the capacity to make intelligent connections. All of them have turned to their own way. Every person after their own ill-gotten gain and dishonest advantage, acting like thieves, without exception or restraint, and to the very end and to their demise. You should agree, therefore, to come, consenting to assemble together to change these things around. I have decided to obtain and accept, they are saying now, intoxication with the confusion and sobriety that wine causes. So this is their modus operandi. They are saying, inviting others into their company, where they're saying, come on, assemble together with us. We can change things around. We can all be similarly intoxicated and confused. We can incapacitate judgment with wine. So we have chosen to be habitually inebriated, constantly consuming alcohol and sundry liquors to the point of an incapacitated judgment through these fermented libations. God is saying that their rhetoric is intoxicating, that they dull the senses. The reason that driving while drunk is a crime is because it dulls your reflexes and forestalls judgment. So you don't have the judgment to know that you shouldn't speed, that you shouldn't run the red light, that you should be careful of where you're going. Because if you're not, you might kill somebody. He's using that same thought as a metaphor here. Then they're saying, according to God, this is his projection into their mindset. Therefore, it will be and he will exist like this day tomorrow. If the days to come are opposed, if they're delayed anyway, at least to a significant extent, for thousands of remnants. That's the crime. It's one thing to intoxicate people so they miss the way, so they don't exercise good judgment, which he is accusing them of doing. It's another thing to say that, well, we can change the way. That if we claim that this day will be like tomorrow, and that there are days to come that can be opposed, they can be delayed, and to a significant extent, and as a result, thousands of remnants will miss the opportunity to capitalize on what God is offering. Yet there are thousands of remnants. God is saying that's the potential victimization of this cult. They went about using the advertising money that I had provided to solicit Israelis. And she has a group of them that she is deceiving. And God knows it. And he is none too pleased. Then the right and vindicated will vanish. As she precludes the Israelites from taking advantage of the Shavuot harvest, because she's made false claims regarding it. False claims regarding the Zeroah leading it, saying that there is no Zeroah, saying there is no Choder, saying there is no Nakar, saying that dough didn't fulfill Pesach Matzah B'Kodim, so there really can't be, as God described it, a Shavuot harvest. Changing everything around such that thousands of remnants will miss the way. But it's then at that time that those who are right and vindicated will vanish, disappearing, such that those who remain will not know where they have gone. No one will give it any thought or meaningfully ponder the implications. Loyal and devoted individuals, however, who are steadfast, will be harvested. They're going to be gathered together and taken away during the Eshaf, this ingathering. Well, no one makes the connection to comprehend why. For indeed, away from the presence of this evil shepherding, this disastrous calamity caused by troublesome former compatriots and miserable companions who are wickedly wrong, those who are correct, upright, and innocent will be gathered in the harvest. They will be removed and received. YAHOWAH, Isaiah 57:1. Are you ready for the ride of a lifetime? They will arrive reconciled and restored, intact and healthy, satisfied and content, blessed and prosperous, in favorable circumstances and saved. They will be spiritually restored and comfortably settled within his restful environs, moving about and walking around while conducting their lives in a manner which is right, honest, fitting, and proper. Isaiah 57:2. But as for all of you, those of you who are still present, wanting to approach at this time, you are the children of false pretenses. under the spell of an Anon, a demonic woman, a sorceress, deliberately conjuring a false spirit to obscure reality and to blow smoke. You are the seed of a Naaf, an adulterous man, one who is unfaithful, disloyal, and unreliable, as well as religious. That would be the Anon's enabler. We know him as D-Crud. The Anon, sorceress, we'll call her DP. And Zana, the despised whore, the loathed woman prostituting her despicable nature by pandering to her partners for favors and bribes. Isaiah 57:3. So what God is saying is that covenant family who are right about him are going to disappear during this ingathering. Going to be harvested. The world's not going to know where we've gone. And God is telling us, quite frankly, that when we arrive in Shamaim, we're going to be really satisfied with the results. We're going to find peace and tranquility there. Shalom. It's going to be a really good outcome for those who are right about God. Those who have been shazak right up to the very last moment. But he says there is going to be a group that is deliberately left behind. And he says, of those of you who are still present, but wanting to approach, Karab, written in the imperative mood, saying that this is what they crave, to be part of this harvest, but they're not. They're left behind at this time. That would mean they have to be someone who is not Christian, who is not Muslim, who is not a practitioner of Judaism, who knows that this is a harvest of the covenant family on Shabuah and expected to be part of it, wanted to be part of it, but was excluded from it. The list of that group of people is limited to this caustic clique of the mother goddesses. You see, Christianity is expecting their rapture to occur on trumpets, teruah. They've already claimed Shabuah for the birth of their church, fulfilled long, long ago. There isn't a single Christian who is going to be, wow, boy, we missed the rapture. We were expecting to be part of it on Shabuah. Not one. They've been beguiled by Paul to believe that their harvest is the rapture of trumpets on, which is teruah. These aren't Christians. They aren't practitioners of Judaism either. Why? Because there isn't a single harvest of souls in Judaism. In Judaism, there is no interest in an afterlife, in going to heaven, in what they would call the final resurrection. They have no interest. They don't talk about, in Judaism, the penalty of Sheol or the reward of Shamaim. Neither exists in Judaism. There is no harvest in Judaism. So this cannot be practices of Judaism. Can't be your run-of-the-mill nincompoops, conspiratorialists. It can't be Muslims. There are no harvests in Islam. There's not a possibility that anyone can be the focus of this condemnation, which is rugged, apart from the Mother Goddess cult. That's it. They're the only ones who know of it, who are expecting to be part of it, who've claimed it for themselves, and who are going to be left behind during it. And of the ringleader of this cult, Yahweh is calling her an Anon, a demonic woman, a sorceress. That's the leader of your flock, if you're part of that group. He goes on to say, she's a whore, pretending love for all manner of gratuity. But she did not operate alone. No. Well, God's going to go on to condemn her in every possible way. He wants you to know, and me to know, and us to realize that her entire community and ability to attack Yada Yahweh and Yada and Dod's contribution during Chag Matzah in Yahweh's name is all possible because of a Na'af, an adulterous man who was unfaithful, disloyal, and unreliable. Decrud, who built her websites. It's the most specific, condescending statement in the whole of the Torah and prophets. And where it leads is even worse, in that the group is dispatched to Sheol. They did this to themselves. You expected to be part of the harvest because you tried to commandeer it. You actually wrote that Shabuah was your harvest. And then you said that those who would listen to Yahweh's Nakar would all die. This is your doing. That psychotic woman who has misled you, according to God, she is demonic. She is a non. She is a despised whore. It is from this vantage point, one which reveals the timing of these events, as we approach the Shabuah harvest, the identity of the hero, the Nakar, the villain, the Anan, and the basis of their argument, which is over Shabuah. Yahweh is continuing to critique this adversarial contingent of what he views as demonic conspiratorialists. Anag, ridicule, as the opening verb in this segment of the rebuke was scribed in the Hitpael imperfect, plural, to reveal that the demonic woman's rebellious and condescending brood would continue to mock and slander, doing so on their own initiative. Listen, on what basis have you, without any actual guidance or provocation, independently and continually become so effeminate and overly sensitive, self-entitled individuals delighting in ridiculing and mocking? Anak, have you all, apart from others, uniquely become so swayed by a woman and feminine individual, becoming yourself effeminate, losing any sign of masculinity? You don't have a backbone anymore. You're not capable of reasoning. You're just awash with emotions, overtly prone to ridicule, enjoying being slanderous without any prior inducement. You're exploiting another while taking pleasure in acting like overly emotional, needy, and gossipy women, hopelessly relishing derision. You're pliable without substance. Hitpael, imperfect, second person, plural. Against what? Against whom do you open your mouth and boast, sticking out your fangs in your prolonged tongue lashings. Are you not the children born of revolting rebellion, who rose up in clear defiance of the authority and relationship by holding a grudge and remaining stubbornly indignant? Pisha, into discordant deflection and false interpretations contrary to God, lost in religion, offensive, incensed, and criminally wanton, rebelling against the agreement. You're the seed, the offspring, the result of a shekur, a vain and useless liar, who is a betrayer, a deceptive and vain fraud, promoting a sham of false pretenses and injurious testimony, of one who swears deceitfully and thereby disappoints by way of self-delusion. YAHOWAH, Isaiah 57:4. So besides the condemnation from God, how'd you like the verse, Miss D? How does that suit you? It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? God's saying of those who craved being part of the Shabuah harvest, but were left behind, who knew about it, expect to be included, condemn those who were included, that you're led by a demonic woman, an unfaithful man, and that this woman is a whore. And he says, so on what basis have you, without any actual guidance or provocation, you were not provoked into this. You were not guided into this. You did this on your own initiative. You have no one to blame but yourselves, and that's true. Independently and continually become so effeminate, so sensitive. Oh, woe is me, I'm a victim. Self-entitled individuals, delighting in ridiculing and mocking. That is what you are. Own it. God knows exactly what you're doing. Against what? Whom do you open your mouth and boast, sticking out your tongue? Are you not the children born of revolting rebellion? Those who rose up in clear defiance of the authorized relationship, holding a grudge, remaining stubbornly indignant, even when you're proven wrong? You're the seed of a sheker, a vain and useless liar, a betrayer, who is deceptive and fraudulent because she's promoting a sham. Doesn't get much rougher than that, folks. And the audience here is exceedingly finite. God's particularly upset when people who are given access to the truth twist it and use it against what he's trying to achieve. And that's what you have done. Addressing the demonic whores, malcontents, YAHOWAH explains that they will be acting, now are acting, on their own initiative. Remember, this prophecy was conveyed 2,700 years ago. That's how long YAHOWAH has held his breath regarding them. He has told us, recognizing that when we came here to validate that the Shabuah harvest would cause souls to literally disappear, that were part of his covenant family, that were right about God, this is where he placed this rebuke, knowing that we would find it at this time and be able to share it with you. God is indeed very patient, is he not? So he's explaining that they're acting on their own initiative, not on his instructions. God further insists that there will be no basis whatsoever for their provocations, and there have not been. They made it all up. You know, first it was Dee's claim that she was victimized and that she was defrauded when she defrauded my wife and I out of $20,000 and our trust when we were better to her than anyone in her entire life. And then she said that she was going to go off and do her own thing when she had conceived this plot and put all the pieces in place, playing the people around us to their detriment for a year prior to the event. And the first thing she does is she gets to my beloved publicist. She's ruined. The webmaster who I had respected, so that she could launch her own little bevy of con men and con women, all ringing in emotion, all doing everything they could to destroy. Childish in their behavior and their response. All been planned. And the unreliable one, the unfaithful one who sided with her, he wrote letter after letter saying, oh, that they had to leave because I hadn't recognized the value of Spirit Mom. And that they were going to be the voice of Spirit Mom to save many by way of Spirit Mom. And the proof of Spirit Mom was in the 8th proverb. Now, the fact of the matter is, that was an outright lie. No one in all of human history had made a bigger deal about the Ruach being feminine and of the influence of Yahweh's role in this regard to our salvation. I was so over the top in trying to project this that I had to go off and do a mama-ectomy to remove it. In other words, their basis for going off on their own was not only a lie, it was the opposite of what was true. And then they claimed that they found Spirit Mom in the 8th Mashal. Guess what? In the 8th proverb, there are that many references to M, which is mother. There are this many references to Ruach, which is spirit. There is no mention of a mother or a spirit or a mother goddess anywhere in the psalm. It was written, or the proverb, it was written by Dode to exclaim the virtues of being intelligent. Chakma, the very thing they lack. And then they would write letter after letter trying to disparage me, yada yada, and then change God's name. And every time they made a move, it was proven that they were untrue, and yet they doubled down. They were unprovoked. They did this to themselves. And they're relentless in their foolishness. Yahweh lays down the gauntlet, prophetically proclaiming that the mean-spirited provocateurs would assuage their hurt feelings through mocking, slander, and ridicule, thereby committing the ad hominem fallacy ad infinitum. Without a valid justification or actual guidance or provocation, they will become a clique of gossipy women, pathetically pursuing derision. They will define themselves by their exploitation and exportation. This will be their method. Hashtag Craig Winn. Hashtag Yada Yahowah. Spew nonsense. That's all they've done. I thought they were insignificant, not even the value of naval lint. Yahweh disagrees. This is his longest, most specific, and most condemning assessment of any group of people anywhere to be found in the prophets. So I'm sharing it with you because he shared it with us. I am never going to veer from what God wants to convey, and this is what he has chosen to convey. He laid this all out in the open, airing the dirty laundry 2,700 years ago, and it's now our job to pin the tail on the ass, on the demonic woman, on her accomplice, the unfaithful one, the disloyal one, serving a whore, serving a woman that Yahweh calls sheker, vain and useless, a liar and betrayer, a deceptive fraud promoting a sham. Having told all who were willing to listen in the 56th chapter of Yeshaya that he would be that God said that he would reveal and enable his tzedakah, his correct nakar, observant foreigner at this time. Yahweh reveals that the boasts and the tongue lashings of the zanas are exceptionally ill-advised. But at the same time, we learn that they are incapable of listening or learning. They deny God's condemnation every time he shares one, as we found in Numbers 12 and Genesis 2 and 3, and 2 Samuel 6. Every time they're called out, an example is made of them that is specific and prophetic of them. Oh, no, it doesn't apply to us. No, it doesn't apply to us. I'm telling you what, this one, I don't care how you try to twist it. Now, the others were quite specific. They accused this Zanaz, this whores, this Anan, this sorceress, using the very specific crimes that she has committed. God was specific. There's really no denying it if you're informed and rational. This time, it is so far beyond any rational person's ability to deny. If you are part of that group, you're in deep trouble. God is disgusted by you. He says, your wagging of your tongues and your sticking out of your fangs is completely and totally unacceptable. You're unacceptable. Therefore, rather than children of the covenant, children of the Nakar, Yahweh announces that they are Yeled Pesha, born of rebellion. And indeed they are. And he's right. They removed themselves from the covenant, from Yahweh, from his Nakar, for no other reason than Pesha, defiance, indignance, and discord. When their claims have found a mother god and to be speaking for her are completely and irrefutably repudiated, as I have done over and over again, presenting them verbally in these programs and in writing on social media, posting them, rather than return to the fold, they demonstrated that they are hopelessly sheker, vain, liars, repugnant, betrayers, deceptive deceivers, knowingly promoting their scam. Unable to defend their claims, they blocked all access to their clique, proving that they weren't actually serving anyone other than themselves. Then, unable to attract an audience, they stooped to misappropriating my name and the name of these books of YAHOWAH. And so Yahweh reports that they are delusional, they're injurious, they're operating under false pretenses, and he's protecting the tree of knowledge. This is Yahweh's primary concern. He has chosen and he has enabled his Nakar, his observant foreigner, acting as his choder, his branch, to reach out and awaken his people from their stupor before his return, and this disrespectful and pretentious clique seeks to destroy his credibility, thereby negating our Father's intent. According to God, the Anan, demonic woman, who is Zana, despised as a whore, in concert with her Na'af, unreliable man, are covetous and greedy, craving that which is not theirs to take. Just like YAHOWAH, just like Miriam, just like Michael. They are in defiance of the Almighty as a result of a senseless grudge. And so, like so many Israelites throughout the ages, they are embittered and they are indignant. The fact that these wretched souls continuously solicit followers by hashtagging my name, God-given titles, and website devoted to our collaboration, as well as the YAHOWAH series, 24 years of work translating Yahweh's testimony, is because of their intense acrimony. They have been whipped into a cantankerous frenzy. And as bad as that sounds, God has even more to say about those trying to topple the tree of knowledge. It's the story, is it not, of Numbers 15. And disavowing the ram and the bull, making it personal. And you, are you not those who burn with rage and who are so intensely and acrimoniously riled up and boiling over against the Ha'el, the prominent tree, and the leading ram, the doorway, and the prolific source of leadership? With Ha'el, God got them both, the ram and the tree, the doorway and the one leading the return. All in an orderly arrangement of the spreading out of the entirety of the flourishing and profusely productive tree. That's just in case you didn't recognize that Al is prominent tree and ram. God says in particular now, you're going against the spreading out, this profusely productive tree of his, the tree of knowledge, the choder, thereby taking the lives of those who would otherwise be born with an inheritance, all from the sheaf, the branch, and Hasalah, the rocky crag. Yeshaya, Isaiah 57:5. We're 2 hours in. I normally only go an hour, but there was so much to share, and we are just beginning. We aren't even 1/3 of the way through God's condemnation of this evil woman and her consorts. That we will continue this tomorrow and probably the day after. There's a lot to share. There's a lot for you to know. And in the end, we will assess all of the reasons that God decided to issue the single most condemning assessment of any individual for us to read at this time, and why he is specific of this one group, and why he is sending them to Sheol. I appreciate you listening. This has been tough testimony to deliver, but we are never going to run from the words of our God. Good day.